our ideas is the source of our philosophy. And I like what the great king said, King Solomon. As a man thinks where? In his heart, so is he. Don't ever quote that verse again without putting the word heart in it. Most of you quote that and leave the word heart out. And the most important part of the verse is the word heart. As a man thinketh, so is he. That is not what he said. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Why? Here's why. Because the heart is the Hebrew word that has to do with the center of reasoning. It's the place where you have meetings with yourself. Where you talk to yourself. That's your heart. That's the meeting place where you have reasoning with yourself. That's where you sit down and say, well, let's see now. Can I do this? Can I not do it? Can I really do this? That's where you're having meetings with yourself. Because that's where your belief system is hidden. In other words, your heart is also, Paul calls it the hidden man. The psychologists would call it your subconscious mind. I call it your hard drive. You know, this iPad got a hard drive on it. Don't trust what's on the desktop. The display, don't trust that. The stuff on the inside, that's the real thing. Now, what is your heart? Your heart is the place where you keep all the ideas you collected all your life, the ones you believe, you keep it. So when you hear the word heart in the Bible, don't point at your chest. Point at your head. Amen. Blessed are the pure in heart. Don't go to your chest. Religious people go to their chest. The pump in your body is not impure. It's doing its job, pumping blood. So, blessed are the pure in heart. It ain't nothing to do with your pump. It has to do with your mind. Are your thoughts pure? Are you thinking with purity? So he says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his subconscious mind. What have you downloaded as your software on your hard drive that you believe? Every time someone presses a certain button in your life, whatever is there comes up. For example, there's some of you black people in this room, when a white man comes into your department, you become very nervous. And when a black man comes, you act like you don't care. In other words, there's something in your heart, your hard drive still got some problems. There's some viruses. You're sick. It's there on your hard drive. 40 years of struggle and you're still there. You ain't free yet. You just delivered.
That's right. Come on, that's good.
Deliverance is when you leave Egypt and enter the wilderness. Freedom is when Egypt leaves your mind. So stop telling people you're free. You are still in the wilderness. And notice what God did in the wilderness, eh? He kept them going around in circles. 40 years going around in circles. You know, my wife and I had an experience, I'll never forget this. We went from Israel to Egypt. And, you know, we were going to visit Egypt for the first time. And this years ago we went there. We've been there a couple of times. And, man, the aircraft took off. And I'm getting excited. I'm going to see Egypt. I'm going to see Pharaoh, you know, remains of the, you know, this, all this stuff. Get excited. And before I could get excited, they said, we're about to land. Fasten your seatbelts. I said, wait a minute. We just took off. And the flight attendant says, yes, we're landing. I said, well, we just left. She said, yes, but we're landing. Ah. I said, what are you talking about? It's only been 20 minutes. She said, yes, we are in Egypt. 20 minutes. We are in Egypt. I said, what are we doing in Egypt already? She says, Cairo is only 20 minutes away. No, you didn't hear what I just said. Okay, let me explain it to you. It took Moses them 40 years to go from Egypt to Israel, where I was. 20 minutes. So when we got to Egypt, right, they picked us up, took us to our hotel, checked us in, and then our first tour guide, came to get us, and we boarded the bus, and we're going out to the pyramids. On our way out there, I became very intrigued. So I asked the driver, I said, excuse me, sir, how far is Israel from here? He said, oh, it depends on how you go, he says. I said, well, explain it to me. He said, well, from Cairo to Israel, Jerusalem, if you walk, it's about 40 days. You take a bus, it's 24 hours. Take a plane, it's 20 minutes. I told my wife, where's my Bible? I got to read my Bible again. I went back hotel room, grabbed my Bible. I said, let me just see. I think God made a mistake. It took them 40 years for a 40-day trip. And then I read in the Bible, it says, because they had not gotten Egypt out of their minds, the Lord led them the long way round until their children were born. Let me just give you the point I'm making here. God will deliver you, but will never set you free. You got to set yourself free. They walked around in that desert for 40 days. Why? 40 years. Why? Because 40 years is a generation. What was God doing? He was waiting for 40 years until he got what they were carrying in their loins. The next generation. When the kids came up, God killed them all. Killed all the parents. By the Bible says God allowed none of them to go into the promised land. Why? Because they were still thinking about onions instead of milk and garlic instead of honey. They didn't change their thinking. Your mentality is more important than your location. If you don't change as a person mentally, you will stay where you are physically. So God killed them all. Only 2 left. And those 2 were born in the desert. Caleb, Joshua. They had no memory of oppression. They believed anything was possible. Leadership begins with thinking. So my question is, what is your philosophy of leadership? Well, why don't you believe that you could own a company? Why the first thing you look for is a job instead of look for a business? It's subtle questions, but why? Why do you go to college and study an area that guarantees employment rather than guarantees deployment? Because your hard drive is stuck. I sit with heads of states. You saw those pictures. Heads of state, kings, governments. I work with them all the time. And most of the folks who run countries are sick just like you. They don't know what to do with the country. Power doesn't make you smart. It exposes your ignorance.